welcome our first speaker, please, Fazina Hanif.
So July 3rd, 2018. It started off like any other day. What I didn't know is that by the end of it, I was going to have answers to questions I'd been seeking for most of my life. The day was uneventful. It was the evening that would change my life as I knew it. I was heading to a coaching session. So as a coach, I truly believe it's really important for all coaches to have coaches. It's how we grow and we learn and we're able to give our clients our best. You see, my coach was helping me with two really big parts of my life. I was a newlywed, really struggling with my first year of marriage. And I was also a newlypreneur within the first year and a half of starting my business after leaving my government job. So I guess I like to pile all the newness on. Yes. So that evening, I'm driving to this coaching session, and I'm leaving my residential area and driving towards the main road. And as I'm driving there, I see this flock of birds in front of me on the road. And in my experience, when we're driving and we see some birds, they see us too, and they start flying away. Well, that was the case for all of the birds in this flock, but one. And so I'm driving, and I'm like, oh my God, bird, fly, fly, bird, fly. And I drive over the last place I've seen this bird. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, did I kill a bird? And I'm looking in the rear view mirror. Thankfully, there's no bird on the road, but there's a whole bunch of feathers above the roadway. And for some reason, I immediately feel guilt, horrible guilt. And then this voice in my head starts, very stoic. Fazina, you need to let go of the guilt, and you need to forgive yourself. Anyway, so I'm driving to my coaching session. It's in Arundel Park in Mississauga. I don't know if any of you have been there. It's beautiful. And it becomes somewhat of a refuge for me over the last little while. I was trying to figure out what was going on in my marriage, and I was trying to find my footing as a new entrepreneur. And so I get to Arundel Park, and I park the car, and I meet my coach. And we're walking along the trees and walking towards the river where we're about to have our coaching session on the rocks. And then I blurt out, Donna, I almost killed a bird. And I just feel so guilty, I don't know why. And I think I just need to let it go and forgive myself. And she's a little taken aback by the strength of my reaction, but she listens, as she always does. So we find the spot on the rocks where we're about to have our coaching session, and we settle in. And about halfway through, Donna says to me, there's something not quite right. I don't know what I'm sensing. And listen, like Donna and we both have this wicked sense of intuition. So I knew that Donna was picking up on something really powerful. So she goes on to say, she's like, there's guilt, Fazina, like a lot of guilt. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't connect back to the birds at that point. And then she goes on to mention something that I had shared with her a number of years ago, an event from my early life that was very painful. And she says, Fazina, it's something about your cousin, the one in New York, the one that died when he was a child. Listen, I don't know what happened to me in that moment. But in that moment, it's like my past and my present collided. And I was transported back 28 years back in time to July 28th, 1990. It was days before my 8th birthday. And my family and I traveled to New York. on our first road trip down there. And we parked on the side of the road across the street from my dad's cousin's place. They were having a party. It was his son's 3rd birthday, and they were also welcoming their Canadian guests. So my dad's cousin comes out from the house and walks across the street and starts talking to us from the front passenger window. What none of us knew is that his son, his 3-year-old son, saw his dad from inside the house and started coming across the street. At the same time, a drunk driver had turned the corner and was barreling down the road. I don't know exactly when the collision happened. My first indication that something had happened was my father jumping out of the car and bolting down the road. There was screaming and there was chaos. In the aftermath of all of it, I stood on the sidewalk looking down at my cousin's lifeless body. He was peaceful. He was quiet. I thought he was sleeping. I'd never experienced death before in my life. I thought at 7 that you grow old and then you die. And here I was watching it happen right in front of me to another child, no less. That evening, I watched my father on Eyewitness News giving an account of what had happened. The next day, my cousin's face was plastered on the full cover of the New York Post with the headline, "Too Young to Die." National talk show hosts like Sally Jesse Raphael were calling the house, expressing condolences and wanting to interview my cousin's parents. It was sensationalized by the media in every way. I was numb. You see, along with the horror that had frozen inside of me, there was a horrible guilt that started to grow. As the days progressed, a prevailing thought came clear in my mind. If we had never come, my cousin would never have come out of the house. He wouldn't have crossed the street, and he wouldn't have died. The guilt was immense. And you know what we're taught about people who are guilty, right? They get punished. And for me, at 7, that punishment started just a few days later, on my 8th birthday, the day of his funeral. That punishment would continue for years to come. I never cried a tear about that day until July 3rd, 2018, by the rocks near the river in Arundel Park. You see, culturally and in my family, we don't talk about difficult stuff. We don't talk about emotional things. No one asked me if I was okay or if I needed help or I needed assistance or if it had affected me in any way. And so I buried it. But now it was asking for me to see it, to feel it, and to give it a voice. Almost immediately that night, I started making connections between the guilt I had carried and this belief that I needed to be punished. And I could see how it was showing up in so many areas of my life, in my career, in my business, in my health, and most especially in the marriage I was having so much difficulty in. I could understand now why I always carried this deep sadness within me. Why I couldn't allow myself to truly be happy personally or professionally. Because I was carrying this belief that I needed to be punished for something that wasn't my fault. I knew that as much as my next steps were going to be difficult and painful, that I had also discovered a deeply buried treasure that was going to change my life forever. And so here's what I did. I committed to my healing. I committed to facing my demons because I was ready to be free. I stand here today with 100% confidence and gratitude in my heart to say that I did face those demons and I did heal. And so ironically, I was already signed up for some training a month before any of this had come up for me, for training on tools and techniques to use in my practice that happened to be the same tools and techniques that would free me from the pain of that day. How amazing is that? And now I use those tools and techniques with my own clients. I feel joy now. For 28 years, I was frozen from joy. I feel joy now. I see possibilities where I couldn't before, and now I'm free to actually experience and enjoy them. See, I realize that in life wants us to be successful. And as such, it will bring all kinds of unresolved pieces from our past to collide with our present to get our attention, kind of like the birds on the road. And when we don't listen, those collisions of past and present, they come more frequent. They become louder and often more painful until they get our attention. But here's the thing. When we do finally hear it, and we do finally see it, and we do finally feel it and give it voice, it's amazing. Because like magic, a support system will appear. Person after person, place, thing, process, you name it, it will appear like magic. And I have some of those people in this room tonight. So if any of this resonates with you, I want you to know that just like that for me, yours will show up too. Thank you.